I'd watched him that day through the porch windows, spouting his case for moving like some highfalutin Philadelphia lawyer.
The 1900 census is projected to be better than 37,000, he'd said, punctuating his words with a chewed cigar. And all those people need houses, stores, and offices. There's big money to be made there, Thomas. That foreman job could open the door to your own contracting business.
At that point, Papa hadn't said a word, nor had his eyes registered an opinion either way, which had given me hope. He was a good carpenter, one of the best at Callaway & Sons, a company I planned to apprentice with as soon as my schooling was out of the way.
Remember, Uncle Nate had continued, Seth is almost 17. Time to settle his future.
I waited for Papa's answer, but he'd always been slow to share his mind and slower still to change it. As the seconds ticked away, Uncle Nate's face took on color. He flushed deep red and let loose with
hellfire, Thomas.
I jumped, almost giving away my position on the porch.
The first medical college in Texas is right there in Galveston, he bellowed. Take the bloody position and send all your boys to college.
That last statement set up a fierce flutter inside me. Papa already knew that working under a blue sky, shaping raw lumber into walls and doors, roofs and staircases, was all I'd ever wanted. But he'd also been clear about what he wanted for his sons. If he thought Galveston could ensure any of us a profession in medicine, we'd be on the next train out of Lampasas for sure. I'd likely end up spending years poring over books and cadavers, and the rest of my life shut up inside a small white room patching up boils and broken arms. The probability of that happening squirmed inside me like a bellyful of grub worms. Uncle Nate poked his cigar between his teeth and gave Papa a lopsided grin.
I can get you a nice furnished rental close to the beach. You know how much Eliza and the kids would love that.
Mama would love that. I held my breath while the vacant expression on Papa's weathered face shifted. I saw a small glimmer of excitement, but it was the hunger in his eyes that finally made me clench my teeth with dread. The same kind of hunger that had always sharpened his words and defined his face when he talked about his sons' futures. If I didn't think of something fast, my Callaway apprenticeship would be good as gone. I was no great shakes at arguing a point with Papa, and thanks to my uncle, it might have been easier to empty the Lampasas River with a bucket than change his mind about my taking on more schooling. By the time Uncle Nate left, Papa was convinced that Galveston could provide enough money to see all three of his sons through college, and he was running full chisel to make sure we had that chance. Still, I had to try. I waited till I caught him sitting alone on the porch to remind him of how much he'd already taught me about woodworking and how more than anything I wanted to be a builder, just like he was. He let me talk, but I could see it wasn't doing much good. I finally threw up my hands. I just ain't got what it takes to be a doctor, Papa.
Haven't, Seth.
The correct verb is haven't. I blew out a frustrated breath. My whole life had just gone to blazes, and he was correcting my grammar. I knew Papa had never had a chance at much formal schooling, but I'd seen him study every book and paper we brought into the house. There wasn't much he didn't know, and little he'd tolerate when it came to incorrect language or bad manners. He'd been known to rap a grown man's knuckles with a knife handle just for reaching across the table for the salt instead of asking for it. Later, Mama told him he'd been lucky the man was good-natured enough to not lay him flat. I knew early on how much Papa valued education. That was why I'd stuck with school when all my friends had gone on to find paying jobs. I'd promised him I'd graduate before I applied for a carpenter's apprenticeship at Callaway, more for his peace of mind than mine. It was a promise I planned to keep, but I sure didn't want to put my life on hold for longer than that. If you don't like medicine, he said, then we'll look into law, or maybe engineering. But, Papa, it's not what I want. You know that.